Jai Hind everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel which is Explore Yourselves, Banking and General Knowledge etc. From Mailroom to Corner Office, a Banker's Journey by Dr. R. Srinivasan. Cover page of the book. Today, that is 19th August 2025, I am sharing episode number 18. YouTube link of earlier episodes, episode 1 to 5. Episode 6 to episode 10. Episode 11 to episode 15. Episode 16 and episode 17. Now the chapter Bank of India Mumbai will start. Bank of India Mumbai. Bank of India. Mere mention of the name makes me swell with pride. Although an earlier possibility of being laterally moved to Bank of India from Allahabad Bank was foiled due to my luck being much less than that of the other enterprising person who managed it successfully. I proved the saying that no one can deny what one is destined to get. There I andher nahi, or all is fair in life even if there are slight delays. I was in Bank of India from June 24, 1987 to August 29, 1991. Before I commence writing and sharing my experiences there, I want to salute my predecessors in the bank who were responsible for the bank's pride of place in the banking industry. Many of these people were stalwart legends in their own right, known for their high degree of honesty and integrity, intellectual brilliance, and great administrative skills. Compared with some of them, I might look like a pygmy in the story of Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. The only difference that was pointed out to me a couple of years back by the person who was writing the bank's history was that in the bank's post-nationalization era, I am the one who remains its chairman for the longest period. For lack of my anyone else doing it, I am patting myself on the back for this. I invoke the blessings of my predecessors for writing my experiences as sincerely and honestly as I can. Until the time the bank was nationalized in 1969, it had the reputation wise for being a highly efficient and profitable institution, next only to the Imperial Bank of India, State Bank of India. I have heard stories of the chief executive, the late T.D. Kansara, boldly replying to the deputy governor of RBI. In those days, there used to be only one deputy governor, who invited Kansara for a cup of tea at the Reserve Bank. Such tea meetings were meant to share the Reserve Bank's views and concerns on certain matters relating to the working of the bank. It appeared that at that point of time, Bank of India's credit deposit ratio was relatively very high, causing concerns to the Reserve Bank. The Deputy Governor was advising Kansara to reduce the advances to a more desirable level. It seemed that Kansara never bothered but firmly replied by saying that his bank's advance portfolio was much safer than the gilt-edged securities issued by RBI. Just imagine the courage of the Bank of India's CEO and his confidence about the bank's borrowers. Compare the situation now with the so-called non-performing assets growing disproportionately with other comparable data. Luckily, this situation is not confined to Bank of India alone. All banks are currently sailing in the same boat. After Kansara, Bank of India was regularly getting its CEO, CMD from State Bank of India. Maybe because of that, many of the systems and procedures followed in Bank of India were similar to those of State Bank of India. It was only much later, after I retired For the first time, that Bank of India had its CMD from its own ranks. That was Mr. Venugopalan. After some time, Mr. Alok Misra also adorned this chair. There was also another story. When government was setting up the Reserve Bank of India, they wanted to call that bank as Bank of India, just like Bank of England, Bank of France or Bank of Japan, etc. Bank of India was established much earlier. I heard that the government suggested the Bank of India could change its name to something else so that the central bank of the country could be called Bank of India. I was told that Bank of India management did not agree with this. The Reserve Bank of India could not take the name of central bank as there was and still is already a bank with the name of Central Bank of India. Nor could it take the name of State Bank of India as this name was also taken by the successor to Imperial Bank of India. Ultimately, Reserve Bank of India took its present name just like the Federal Reserve of the USA. Bank of India continued with its name. The central bank of a country name into existence with the name Reserve Bank of India. I got the orders from the government appointing me as the CMD of Bank of India while I was holding a similar post in Allahabad Bank, Kolkata. I therefore decided to join the Bank of India at Kolkata itself. I reported for duty on June 24, 1987. A day later, I travelled to Bombay and started attending an office that was then located on the 14th floor of Express Towers, Noriman Point. My family was still in Kolkata, but youngest son Srinivasan came along with me because he needed to get admissions to a college in Bombay. Our bank's flat in Sterling Apartments on Pedder Road was not ready for occupation, and so for a few days until my family joined me, both my son and I were staying in the guest house of the bank at Senaj building on Nepean Sea Road. The building where Bank of India's head office located belonged to Indian Express and we were tenants who had a few floors in the building. The bank was paying a rent of rupees 4 per square foot. The head office of the bank had various departments in different places in the city of Bombay. The Express Towers was occupied by the top executives such as the CMD, ED, general managers, some deputy general managers and assistant general managers, mainly the C&IC, loans and advances department, foreign department and the staff departments were in this building. The 14th floor had all the GMs and above and the board secretariat. Before proceeding further, let me recall what I wrote in my very first dispatch, which I mentioned at the start of chapter 2 and reproduce again below. But the interesting anecdote is that the insurance company where I was working as a clerk had a current account with Bank of India in Armenian Street, Madras, 1947. I was given a check on the bank and asked to go and get cash. I went there and waited timidly in the public area after getting a brass token to be called when the cash was ready. While waiting, I was feeling how it would be if I got a chance to work in a bank like that. The people behind the brass polished counters made a great impression in my mind. I could have never imagined that 40 years later I would be chairman of the same bank by which time the brass polished counters have disappeared. Another incident connected with Bank of India happened in 1964, long before I became its chairman. I was deputed by Andhra Bank to undergo instruction at the Bankers Training College, Dadar, Bombay, in the third foreign exchange course. One afternoon, I visited the main office of Bank of India at the Mahatma Gandhi Road near Flora Fountain. That building also used to be the head office of the bank in those days. On the first floor, I saw the foreign exchange department and was simply overawed by the size of it and the number of people working there. I was only used to seeing the AP department in Madras with a staff of about 4 or 5 people. Some of you might recall my mentioning about getting certain AP transactions of Andhra Bank done through Bank of India, Madras branch, when P.S. Santhanam was the head of that department. At that time, I never imagined that one day I would be his boss. Possibly this was one reason why he was reportedly telling others that he taught me foreign exchange. I do not deny learning from him. I always believed that providence played a huge part in my life. Hence, on the day before I went to take the seat of the chairman, Bank of India, at Express Towers, I went to the temples of Siddhivinayak and Mumba Devi and sought the grace of Almighty. It was a nice gesture of Allahabad Bank Zonal Office, Bombay, to have asked that driver, the late Durbal, to guide me to the temples and then to the bank that day. With the blessings of gods, I reported at the 14th floor of Express Towers to become chairman of these great institutions. The first thing I did was to go around all the floors where various departments were located, shook hands with every member of the staff, including the subordinate staff, peeped into the toilets to see how clean they were, and then came back to my office and called all the general managers for a meeting. Mr. Rege, Suryamani Pathak, SP Wag, Nadi Bhavnani, Dara Avari, and Tagarse are some of the names I recall with pleasure and pride. Each one of them was very efficient in their own ways and proved to be an invaluable asset to me. I was told that Mr. N.S. Parulekar, ED, who was in charge of the bank until I was appointed, was on leave. He was due to retire in about a month's time, so I was surprised how the government had permitted him to go on a foreign tour just when he was about to lay down office. What would be the benefit for the bank if he returns from the tour and on the following day goes on retirement? I learned that he was not happy with my being appointed as CMD because he was expecting that he would get the appointment because he had been there for so long. He was not willing to meet me because he thought that I was too small a person for him to bother with. He must have changed his mind because just before leaving for his trip, he came to my office to inform me that he had taken permissions from the government to go abroad. He did not tell me to which country he was going and for what purpose. Believe me, he did not meet me even after he came back and retired from bank service. He lived for some years thereafter and somehow we did not come in contact with each other. I still do not know why he was so averse to me. He is reported to have passed away. The last episode ended with a reference to the late Parulekar, in order that we do not refer to him again. Let me just quote one incident where he figured during one of my trips abroad. That was probably my first visit to a branch of Bank of India outside India. During the course of interaction with the manager in that branch, he expressed a desire to visit head office. I asked why he would like to visit when the head office itself was sitting before him. He said that he was granted permission by Mr. Parulekar to officially visit when he was supposed to bring a colored televisions for him. I do not remember whether he did eventually visit or whether the TV found its destination. During the first few days in my new role, I observed that the calibre of the general staff and officers of Bank of India was far more superior to what I found in other banks and where I had worked before. They are knowledgeable, they had clarity about what they were expected to do, how to present a matter before higher authorities, and that they were open to different ways of approaching an issue. Yet there was room for fine tuning their talents and they accepted suggestions with an open mind. This made my job quite easy. I asked all officers who prepared notes for my attention to not simply sign their names illegibly but to specifically spell their names and give their telephone number extension numbers so that I could pick up the phone and talk to them directly. If the matter warranted a discussion, I called them to my office and talked to them in person. Many of them felt that they were walking into the room of the chairman for the first time in their service. The whole atmosphere in the office changed with this approach. There were many occasions when I walked over to a concerned general manager or the department head to talk to them about an official matter. The greatest advantage I derived out of this practice was that all of them were in their seats because they did not know when the chairman would walk into see them. Certain immediate steps were taken by me. I started having a meeting of all executives from DGMs and above in the morning on all working days except on those days when we had a board meeting or a head office committee meeting. This ensured punctuality in the senior executives coming to the office. The meetings were informal and was used to exchange views on matters that were happening. General managers and deputy general managers reported about any important events that would have happened on the previous day and their plans for that day or for the coming days. Whatever was happening in any part of the world where we had branches was brought to the notice of the participants, and that way every executive was keeping himself informed. Executives' travel plans are also discussed, which eliminated two or more people going to the same place at the same time. In such a case where only one would go and the others dropped out, the person who was going was to attend to the work of the others. This resulted in saving the time of the executives as well as the expenses. Such meetings were presided over by the CMD and in his absence the senior most executive present in the office. Rough minutes used to be maintained for such meetings so that follow-up was not lost sight of. In one such meeting and within a few days of my joining the bank, it came to light that my predecessors had given a contractual appointment to the general manager law on a monthly payment of rupees 5,000 after he had retired. His deputy was Miss Nargis Khambata, and I called her and asked if she needed the guidance of Mr. Homi Vesuwala, who continued in office even though he had already retired. She said that she was confident of running the department by herself. I therefore terminated the appointment of Mr. Vesuwala with immediate effect, and this was welcomed by all. I was not trying to save rupees 5,000 per month to the bank, but I was against the idea of granting extension in service for no good reason. I introduced the practice of having a uniform type of visiting cards for all executives. Same size, same color of ink and the bank's emblem printed on the same place for all cards. It became very popular because anyone can easily recognize that the card belonged to Bank of India. Signboards at branches and other offices of the bank were also made to look similar. Much later, I also introduced the concept of model branches. This involved developing a similar layout for every branch so that they would look alike. For instances, if one is familiar with the one such branch, he need not ask anyone where he could find the bills department or cash departments or where he has to go to deal with his savings bank account. The manager would be located in the same place in each branch, and the customer even knew where he could find a restroom. Within a few days of my taking over, I asked the senior executives to ensure that the annual closing of the bank was done quickly and the balance sheet was brought out in good time to be the first bank to come with the annual accounts. I shared with them my experience in getting this done in Allahabad Bank. One of the general managers, the late SP Wag, who was known for his straightforward talk with a booming voice, told me that this was an impossible task in Bank of India. He said that getting it done in a smaller bank like Allahabad Bank was acceptable, but it could not be practicable in a big bank like Bank of India with its overseas operations, etc. I listened to him patiently and replied that my decision to see that the annual accounts were finalized first and the balance sheet brought out first in the industry was final, and that it was up to him to get it implemented. I said that it should be done and that would be done. He cooperated, and I am glad to say that Bank of India started being the first bank with this record and maintained it until I left in 1991. Necessary incentive scheme was introduced to encourage staff at all levels to achieve this. Sadly, this fine general manager is also no more. Elsewhere, a question was raised whether it was worthwhile to have introduced this system and whether the cost involved had benefits. When we look at what was happening before this system was brought in, we would be satisfied that it was innovative and had its advantages far outweighing the expenses. Earlier closing work, as it used to be called, would go on and on till August every year, and from April 1. Everyone claimed to be busy with closing work. No new business would be solicited because the closing was on. Once the new practice was introduced, all the staff were involved in getting this done in a few days after the year ended. Normally by the first week of April every year, the audited financial ledgers as on March 31st of each branch would be in head office. Almost during the first few days of the month of May, the bank would adopt the accounts at their board meeting and announce its results on the same evening. Managers and staff on the field were free from the monotonous closing work and could attend to other, more progressive activities. We should bear in mind that this was achieved even when operations in the bank were not computerized or even mechanized. Now, with so much of advancements in information technology, this should have become a much easier job to complete. Considering the fact that on the first working day of the bank each financial year, we were able to announce almost correctly the total deposit, advances, and rough estimate of profit. So I think the scheme was worth the money spent on implementing this scheme. My next immediate job was to get a new ED in the vacancy caused by Parulakar's retirement. The government was contemplating some names, but I prevailed upon them and got Mr. Rege, the most senior of the general managers, promoted to the post of ED, even though he did not have a long tenure. He was also a fine person and commanded respect from all the staff. He was happy to have become ED before retirement, but his tenure in the role was only for a short period. I found that the industrial relations in the bank were cordial, and that this could be attributed to the union leaders who were equally interested in the progress of the bank as much as the management. They had a practical approach for any issue and never took a confrontational stance just to show their strength. There used to be some smaller groups who would occasionally create some fuss over small issues, but this was probably just to make the management feel that they existed. Towards the end of my term in Allahabad Bank, I had become the deputy chairman of IBA, and by virtue of the chairman of the Kolkata Center of IBA, when I came to Bank of India, I became chairman of IBA. This greatly helped me to tackle the personal matters with a wider perspective and knowledge. In almost all establishments in Maharashtra, an outfit called Sthaniya Lokadhikar Samiti used to exist. They took care of the interest of Maharashtrian segment of employees in a cultural sense rather than as a trade union. They are said to be an affiliate of Shiv Sena, whose undisputed leader was Bal Thackeray Sahib. One day I called on Bal Thackeray Sahib at his residence along with my family, which included my first daughter-in-law, who is a Marathi girl from Pune. In fact, that connection made my visit to Shiv Sena leader much easier. We paid our courtesies to the leader and he played a good host. When we were leaving, he came out to see us off. At that time, some of the leaders of our bank's SLS were standing on the platform opposite to the Bal Sahib's house. Many followers of Bal Thackeray Sahib used to gather in front of his house to have his darshan whenever he happened to come out and wave at the crowd. In India, this culture of paying respect to a leader, be it in politics or in films, is very common. The bigger the crowd, the bigger the star or politician. When such a crowd on that day saw me and my family getting so much of an honor from their leader, they developed a respectable affinity for me. Until the end of my tenure at the bank, they extended their best of cooperation to me. In the same way, I also utilized their help and assistance to build the image of the bank. The earliest opportunity for me to use them came in the form of Ganapati festival. This yearly event in Maharashtra was originally started by Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak as part of the freedom movement of our country. Bank of India participated in the festival in the year 1987 and regularly thereafter. With the help of the SLS, we arranged to put up stands and stalls on the route of the procession of the Ganapati idols towards the sea uh, for immersion. We supplied cool protected water to the public and also publicized the various services offered by the bank. This became a very big hit. The SLS also had many talented singers whom I encouraged during suitable occasions. During the first such festival where Bank of India participated, we coined a slogan Ganpati Devat Maharashtra Cha, Grahak Devat Bank of India Cha. Loosely translated, it means Ganapati is the god of Maharashtra, and for Bank of India, the god was its customers. Pardon my lack of Marathi language. If my rendering is incorrect, I hope that the spirit is understood. Readers may kindly correct and mention the right version if they so wish. Speaking of slogans, during the same year, one of the general managers came out with a byline for the bank that cares. All of us know that this has since been replaced by the line relationship beyond banking. The original and most inspiring line was, "You have a future in the star," and this can never be forgotten. I am one of millions inspired by it. I had a mischievous member in my secretariat who playfully added an S before the word cares. I do remember her and her name but would not disclose it without her consent. In due course, I happened to visit Ahmedabad. In those years, Ahmedabad was not as prosperous as it is now. There used to be only one good hotel called Kama. I am not going to use this space to define how the same Ahmedabad and the same state of Gujarat have changed and have become a model state in India for the manner in which it was progressed. At an antique shop in the outskirts of Ahmedabad, I found a Ganapati statue made of brass. It was beautiful and looked divine, and so I bought it for rupees 7,000. It took it to the head office and placed it on a pedestal on the 14th floor. I made it a practice to bow before the idol before going into my office, and many other officers and staff also followed this practice. I must admit of an instance where I made a fool of myself. The SCST group of employees in the bank celebrated the birthday of Baba Sahib Ambedkar, and I was asked to be the chief guest on that occasion. I did talk highly about Dr. Ambedkar and lauded the work carried out by his followers. But one glaring mistake I was repeatedly making during my talk was to refer to Baba Sahib as Bala Sahib. Was it due to the influence of Bala Sahib had on me after my meeting with him? Unfortunately, none of the executives from head office who were sharing the dais with me even attempted to correct me. Was it with due deference to my position of being their boss, or did they secretly desire that my ignorance should stand exposed? Whatever the reason, I simply became a laughing stock, although no one laughed in my presence. I confess that even today, this one instance haunts me. I really do not know how I can make amends. At the head office, there was a canteen for the staff. There was no executive lunch room, and so I started the practice for senior executives to have lunch together on the 14th floor. Executives of AGMs and above came together to eat. That became a forum for informally meeting each other and occasionally also discuss some official matters. I arranged to play some soft classical instrumental music in the background, and that brought about a good amount of cheer among the participants. The catering was done by an outside company at competitive pricing. Gaylord were the caterers for as long as I could recall. Bank of India, being one of the leading banks in the country as well as having several branches overseas, had developed a tendency to get work in business. There was no concerted or planned attempt to proactively converse new business. If any new business came to the bank, it would have been due to the efforts of some enterprising branch managers or his immediate superiors, such as the regional manager or zonal manager. Executives in the head office would never think of voluntarily soliciting business. However, I came from a different background. I was always going all out to solicit business and encouraged those who followed my approach. As far as I am aware, in the Indian banking industry, I was the first chairman to go and meet customers in their office or place of business. Also, I was the one who went and met prospective customers to solicit business. In one of my earlier writings, I had explained my visit to Jindal Aluminium in Bengaluru and how that prestigious account was coveted for New Bank of India. In order to cultivate this spirit, we started having get-togethers with certain professional groups of eminent persons. One of the general managers at the head office, who was also the guardian for the branches in the city of Bombay, liked this idea. His name is Dara Diabhari, and he is luckily still amongst us and lives in Mumbai. I do take the privilege of meeting him once in a while. He arranged dinner meetings with groups of lawyers, doctors, and the like. We asked our leading branch managers and general manager in Mumbai to participate in these meetings, and it was for them to follow up the invitees and make efforts to get new business. Similar exercises were permitted at zonal office levels. While on this subject, let me add that Avari was one of the general managers from Bank of India to become ED and go to Canada Bank. During my chairmanship in Bank of India, I considered him as one of the very dependable general managers. Whenever any note from him came to me, it was easy for me to dispose of his files, as I would only need to read his recommendations and simply agree with them. He took a special care to verify all details and make a recommendation. I never felt let down by him. There were other general managers with considerable talents, and I hope I will not forget to mention them in due course. Thereafter, we concentrated on prominent industry level gatherings. We started this program with a meeting with diamond merchants in Mumbai, followed by leading exporters, stockbrokers, and so on. We had an exclusive meeting with the board of Mumbai Stock Exchange and offered our services to them. In pursuance of this, we created a subsidiary Bank of India Shareholding Limited in partnership with BSE. This activity created a wave in the industry. Never before had such efforts had been made, especially by a leading bank like Bank of India. This helped the bank to understand the peculiar needs of the industry and their problems and find appropriate solutions. In turn, this also helped us to get quality business. We made it a point to approach big industries for their business relationship either by shifting that account to our bank or to take our bank as an additional banker. We did not do any unethical things such as offering reduced interest rate. Instead, we emphasized our efficient banking capabilities and added some sweeteners such as offering to send our bank representatives to collect their checks or cash for deposit. This also made a big difference in the market that a bank the size of Bank of India was willing to go out and seek new business. I remember my going to Bombay House where the Tatas have their business headquarters to personally greet Ratan Tata as soon as the legend. Jahangir Ratanji Dadabhai Tata announced his retirement and named Ratan Tata to succeed him. That was the only occasion when I met JRD. He was called J. He jocularly remarked that I was the only banker who came to see him. At a later date, we invited Ratan Tata to our bank and requested him to speak to our executives in our boardroom. I think that his visit and his address to our executives did make a lasting impression on us. It became much easier for me to slide it to the CMD's chair in Bank of India with my earlier experiences in two other banks. More so because Bank of India had well established practice and procedures. The only thing that was required was to motivate the staff to work with total involvement and dedication. I wanted them to show their efficiency in disposing of any matter as quickly as possible and always bear in mind that a decision taken in time will save many connected people valuable time and anxieties. To inculcate this habit among the staff, I practiced it myself. No file sent to me would remain with me for more than few minutes. It became a habit with the peons bringing files to me from various floors of the building to wait outside my office to take them back once I had finished with them. Another practice I followed was not to leave the office on any day until all files received were disposed of. On days when I returned from tours, many files would be waiting for my attention and I went home only after cleared my desk. My thinking was, suppose I did not return to the office the next day, what happened what would happen to those files? Once the routine in the office was well established, I started visiting zonal offices and important branches. Wherever I went, if there was a staff training college, I made it a point to go there and speak to the participants without waiting for an invitation to do so. This was motivated by my justification that at the college the participants were from several offices across the country and when they went back they would carry my message to their respective offices. That way my messages reached far and wide in the bank much more effectively than by circulars. Another practice I followed until the end was to shake hands with everyone in the branch or office I was visiting. Starting from the peon at the gate and ending with the top man in the office, I am sure no other chairman did this either in our bank or elsewhere. Along with chairmanship of Bank of India Mumbai, I have performed industry leadership, that is chairmanship of Indian Banks Associations Mumbai also. By this time, early 1987, I was due to become the chairman of Indian Banks Association. I was the senior most deputy chairman and was therefore next in line for promotion. My predecessor was the late Mr. M.N. Goipuria, who was CMD of Central Bank of India. The peculiar practice followed by IBA was based on mere seniority rather than capability, and that worked in my favor. Otherwise, my resume would not have had the privilege to boast that I was chairman of IBA for nearly 4 years. Next in line was the CMD of Canada Bank, the late B. Ratnakar. When my turn came, I took some time to decide. This was because at the time, State Bank of India was and still is the most important member of the IBA, not merely due to its size and its contribution to IBA's finances, but also because of the importance of the chairman of the State Bank of India enjoyed among the bankers. The Reserve Bank and the government at that time, Sri Dhrubnath Ghosh, IA and AS, was the chairman of State Bank of India. He was a bureaucrat and had worked in the banking division of the government of India. He was very knowledgeable and highly respected. I told him in high esteem even now, and luckily I bumped to him once in a while during my travels. I would like to mention that for my doctoral thesis, I literally quoted from his speeches and writings with due acknowledgement. Mr. D.N. Ghosh was expressing his opinion that State Bank of India should like to get out of IBA, as according to him, IBA was not in any way helpful to State Bank of India. He did not think much of IBA's contributions in negotiating wage settlement for bank employees. If State Bank of India went out of IBA, it would be an irreparable loss to IBA and its strength as an apex body of Indian bankers. At the same time, IBA was also contemplating buying its own premises in the World Trade Center in Cafe Parade. Mr. D.N. Ghosh was saying that IBA did not need to buy the property and spending so much money that came from the members and a fairly high portion of it from State Bank of India. Under the circumstances, if I had kept quiet, the history of IBA would have taken a different direction and blame for that would have accrued to me. I therefore quietly went to meet Mr. Ghosh. I told him that at IBA I was due to become the chairman but would be very happy if he could take over instead. I explained that I could be delighted to work under him and learn the work so that at a later date I could accept that responsibility myself. He heard me patiently and very magnanimously declined this offer and said that I should accept the post and that he would give me all cooperation and guidance whenever required. By this meeting, two more objectives were also achieved. One, State Bank of India did not withdraw from IBA, and two, purchasing the space in WTC by IBA also became a smooth affair with the State Bank of India supporting it. But coming back to IBA, I faced severe criticism from Mr. Ratnakar about my meeting with Mr. Ghosh and offering him the chairmanship of IBA. He told me that I did not want the job, that was fine, but who was I to offer it to Mr. Ghosh? However, as his opposition to my action did not find much support, I took it in my stride and moved on. After becoming chairman of IBA, much of my time was utilized for IBA matters, which was in the thick of fifth bipartite wage negotiations. I became the center point of attention from all quarters, unions, bank managements, RBI and the government of India. The negotiations went on and on for months and possibly longer. There was one Mr. Venkatachari from State Bank of India who was participating in the negotiations. He was well qualified in law, including labor laws. He was much elder to me, and I am happy to recall my association with him and say with pride that whatever skill in negotiation I acquired was entirely due to my being his understudy. Unfortunately, he is no more. By virtue of my becoming the chairman of IBA, I became the vice chairman of the Indian Institute of Bankers. The chairman being the governor of RBI, vice chairman of Bankers Training College, managing committee member of National Institute of Bank Management, and a member of the team headed by the deputy governor of RBI to Brussels to discuss and being swept to India. This team had to go there 3 or 4 times, but ultimately we got swept to India. SWIFT is a computer network used by banks all over the world. SWIFT, Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication system, is used for interbank communications such as transfers, issuing letter of credits, bank guarantees, etc. I was also asked to be a member of the currency management study tour around the world. We went around the world to study the method and practice followed by the central banks of various countries. At one stage, the leader of the team, a deputy governor of RBI, was not able to go with us, so I became leader. This currency management team was responsible to bring to India the currency counting machine, disposal of soil notes, sorting of the reusable notes, and many related issues. It is due to its recommendations that the printing of 1 rupee, 2 rupees, and 5 rupee coins was gradually withdrawn and 5 rupee coins were introduced. Already 1 and 2 rupee coins were in force at that time. The committee recommended complete withdrawal of 10 rupee coin notes also, but this was only partially accepted. Whenever a 5 rupee coin or 10 rupee coin is in my hand, I feel some personal connections with that. Because of my chairmanship of IBA, I got free access to several union ministers in Delhi, and they gave me due regard for my being upright and straightforward. I used this prestigious position to do good to others, not for self-aggrandizement. There were several occasions when I could be of use to others without them even knowing it. Let me quote one such example. I was with the minister in charge of banking one evening. We were discussing all and sundry when from nowhere our discussions turned into the then chairman of Nationalized Bank from Maharashtra. There were allegations about his incompetency and integrity, and the government was contemplating terminating his services. I raised this subject with the ministers. He said that he was fed up with so many complaints against him and that a file recommending his termination was lying among the heap of files in his office. I told the ministers that he would be making a grave mistake if a decision to terminate the services of the chairman was taken. I asserted that I knew this person well and I was prepared to vouch for his integrity and honesty. About his ability or competency, I would not say anything as I had no personal knowledge. The ministers listened to me patiently and came up with some searching questions. I simply asked him if he knew the concerned person himself, or would he admit that I knew him better. He agreed that I probably did know him better. I used that with all my strength to plead with the minister to change the decision. He asked me to find out the file from the heap, and when I retrieved it and gave it to him, he wrote on it that he discussed the matter with the chairman of IBA and was convinced that the recommendations for the termination need not be accepted and ordered that the matter may be treated as closed. I felt really proud of this and thankful to God to have given me that position where I could be some use to someone. I would not know if the said chairman was aware of the part played by me in this continuing in his position in spite of an adverse campaign against him. I know that I did not tell him about it. The chapter Bank of India and IBO Mumbai will continue. Thank you very much for your patience. Request for like, subscribe and share.